So, I was fortunate enough to see Furious 7, and I thought I would give you guys my thoughts on some of the crazy moments. I do recommend having seen the movie first before listening to my recap, as I will be talking about things that happened and kind of expressing my feelings on those things. A few years have passed between the films, but we basically start right where the other movie had left off. We have the bad guy coming to get vengeance against our family. The first thing that I really loved was the Rock giving a rock bottom to the film's villain and the camera shifting. Even though I thought this technique was a little overused throughout the film, I thought that was the perfect use for it. This movie also had a good, likable CIA type guy, and I thought that was interesting. He didn't actually turn on the heroes, which was very weird because most of these films they're kind of like good bad guys. Some of the best stunts you would have already seen possibly in the trailer, but the movie does a good job of setting them up with enough anticipation that even if you know they're going to happen, I think it is still worth the payoff. So The Rock's character has a great battle early in the film, and then he's taken out for the majority of the film, but he does come back at the end, and anyone who's seen that moment is awesome. The fact that he drives an ambulance down off of a ramp onto a drone, which has kind of been given a little bit of a personality of its own. So when he shoots it in the sensor eye, something out of 2001: A Space Odyssey kind of thing, you kind of feel like he's actually killed this monster or something that's been after that. The sheer action of this movie, I thought that there was some really good action. It's very well thought out, and there's key emotions that you're supposed to feel. This movie actually is really good at that. Every time there's a car reveal, you really, I don't know anything about cars. Genuinely, I know the one guy's got a muscle car, which is an analog machine. I understand there's other cars that are, more computerized. I get that concept. One thing that is made very clear is that when they pull back the sheet off of these cars, you are supposed to go, oh, yeah, look at that. And even though I don't know anything about them, you kind of have that feeling this is such a masterpiece of automotive engineering and polish. So, for somebody not knowing about cars, that is an achievement. Each of these films seems to need a moment where we go and see a bunch of young people drive cars really fast as an event. This movie had a really kind of shoehorned one in. If they, the last couple they weren't shoehorned in either, but basically they go to this track, which apparently they've created in earlier films. They've kind of this event, and they go there because they want to help get Lainey's memories back. She does get overwhelmed by the whole thing and leaves, but not before we have to stare gratuitously. But not before we have to stare at a lot of people's butts. Ladies' butts. Butts. Not sure that was necessary. I mean, I don't mind looking at fancy cars and being like, yeah, movie, you're telling me those cars look great? Yeah, I believe it. Movie, you don't have to convince me that butts are a thing. The media has done that. Thanks for jumping on that bandwagon. To be fair, they've always done that. Though I did think there was a part later on where there's a girl, there's this hacker girl, Ramsey, who's walking out of the water on a beach, and I thought that was kind of a tribute to the James Bond film that I can't remember off the top of my head, where you have, her walk out of the water, and he's watching her. I think it's more of a tribute to that versus being just gratuitous. I should not use words that I don't know how to say. Rather than just being there for the sake of look, scantily clad lady. I do think that one actually has a reference to another movie, which, I can at least appreciate that effort. This one was really good in that if you're looking for an action movie, this movie is action, 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 action. There is a lot less points in comparison to the other two movies before it, where we take time for the characters to sit around and talk about stuff. This movie does not, people don't spend as much time talking in this film. It happens for just a couple minutes, and then, you know, we're off to the races, we're off to the next thing. We don't even spend as much time, you know, amping up the cars or testing the cars. It's just, let's go to the next big stunt. So, you know, that kind of brings me to the end of the movie, where it's very cathartic. It's very emotional. It kind of is the end for these characters, I feel. It's definitely an end for Paul Walker's character. I feel like that group, that family, is going to be written off now, I would hope. And hopefully some of the other main characters to kind of make room for new characters, to kind of bring life into the franchise and maybe try stunts from a new perspective, because I don't really know how they top themselves at this point. I do think they've aimed and succeeded at creating unique car stunts, even though sometimes there's helicopters involved and drones and all sorts of other things involved. They somehow ground it in, our heroes are always driving cars. And that makes sense, because that's what they do. So I love your guys' feedback on what you thought of some of the points that I brought up, or just your feelings on the movie in general. I think it was a really fun watch, and I thought the pacing was really good. And yeah, I mean, I would say 5 is still my favorite, but this one would be my second favorite, I think. I think just the fact that we went from action to action and didn't need to get mired in a lot of story, because we had spent so much time covering that in the other films. And then with the ending, which is very, you know, emotionally releasing, it's kind of like you get a chance to mourn the loss. I think this movie is very good, and if you've enjoyed the other movies, I would say you probably enjoyed this. Oh, one more thing I want to comment on. Holy cow, camera. You can stay still for a couple seconds. Like, this was not something we needed to learn from Michael Bay and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. The camera does not need to constantly move, because if the camera never stays still, your audience is going to feel like they're on some sort of roller coaster and they're trying desperately to watch a movie while that's happening. Just because somebody is standing on a cliff, we do not need to constantly go, whoa, whoa, and he's talking on the phone to a girl who's standing in a garden. We do not need to constantly be panning around her and at such top speeds. Like, just slow the movement down so my brain can have a second to process everything that is happening. Because otherwise, that was Headache City.